I'm going to try this again because I was crying in the first one and I refuse to let y'all see that shit. Um, I'm going to talk today about, as somebody who has depression, not even just as somebody who is someone like me who's got many, many, many factors that add into depression or can spiral depression. Many things that I have to, that I personally would have to look out for causing or maintaining or reducing depressive episodes. I want to talk about people around us as well as the people who are suffering from depression, like in general, necessarily. So, a really important thing for both the sufferer of depression as well as the loved one of the sufferer of depression is research. So, because I have done a lot of research into depression since I've been diagnosed. I've watched a lot of videos of people who, talking what it's like. I've seen lots of posts on Tumblr, which is one of the easiest ways for me to learn things, is because I get a little bit of information at a time and I'm not overwhelmed with information, and then I can, focus my brain somewhere else. And I feel like in that way I retain more that way. And so that's just my personal learning preference because but anyway, doing research, watching videos, and things like that. If the person who's trying to help you or who loves you doesn't do their research and doesn't know what exactly, major depressive disorder, which is my diagnosis, and anxiety, my diagnosis is, not only separately but together, then how are they going to help you? Or how are you going to be able to help yourself? So, doing your research is very important. What is it? And watching videos of other people who have it, of family, loved ones of people who have it, even medical professionals who deal or who work specifically. That's their specialty. Um, that's sorry, my back's starting to hurt. Um, that's so that's a main thing. And because people who have depression have so little energy, and sometimes they don't really have their vocabulary, uh, what it is, that's where research comes in really well, because you learn that vocabulary and you can, or see vocabulary people are using right now, and if you know at least a couple more keywords, and you have a few places else to look and to go, and so that also helps with further research and further things. So just, and so research is really important. Another really important thing is stopping and listening, both as somebody who suffers as depression, listening to the person who is getting frustrated with you, and so being able to listen to them and what they're, and also if what they're saying is from a place of love, and depression's telling you otherwise, or they look down on you, that they think you're crazy, or they are going to leave you if you show them what depression really is, for you anyway, then it's gonna be hard. Well, yes, you've got to, and I hate using you've got to, you need to, you should, because that just spirals depression anyway, or anxiety. It just it doesn't help. So research can bring you more vocabulary, both for what you can say, or for more research keywords. So vocabulary helps with being in touch with who you are and how it pertains in depression and vice versa, and how it pertains to your situations and your people around you, and helps you do the keywords into finding recovery tips and help, and even videos of people who are also going through the same things you may be going through. So there's that. But this is also for the person who is the loved one, finding vocabulary, because once you do research, you're going to find some of these things too. These shoulda, coulda, wouldas, or these you need tos, these something you might want to try. And advice and these things are good, but a listening ear is also good, or even better. Or here's what I've heard. One of the videos that I was watching earlier this morning mentioned, here's something I read about or heard about. Is that something you might like to try? And so that's a good thing. But it's also important to remember that when somebody has depression and everybody's got these suggestions of, would you like to try this? And it's possible that they've already tried it. So there's some other thing that this person also said, I might even put the link there too, is, where was I going with that? Yeah, so would you like to try? But also keep in mind that there are probably people who've also said this, or there's also things they have already tried. So asking, what have you tried, is probably a good question. So checking into people, what can I do to help? How are you feeling? What can I do to help? Here's what I heard about in my own research, because not only does that show somebody's trying to learn and understand, and that goes a long way for someone with depression, but it also helps, or also somebody who doesn't know about depression as much and they're just watching from a sideline. It helps the loved one know that you're doing your research and you are trying to better yourself in that way. So it changes those misconceptions that on the sufferer side, oh, they don't care about me, or they're dismissive of my illness, because this is an illness. And it also tells the sufferer, or the person who's living with the sufferer, that okay, they are doing their research, they're doing everything they can. It's not just them moping about all day, sleeping and doing whatever. So if they do have that misconception, hopefully that will erase that misconception, knowing you are doing your research, have been doing your research, have different vocabulary. So if the person who is the loved one is looking into vocabulary, it also helps them talk and communicate with someone who has depression. It eliminates. It helps them eliminate the spirals, the depressive episodes, eliminates or reduces, or things like that. So being able to listen is a really good, helpful thing, because for the sufferer, they need to listen when their loved one is unsure. They need to listen to questions, and listening to questions does help. One, if they don't know the answer, that gives them another area to do their research. Two, if they do know the answer, they could educate the person who is trying to learn for themselves. And so that gives them an out, or more keywords to search in their research. So there's that, communication there as well. And in some ways it's really watching how you say it, and blame, and trying not to. And because it's really a sensitive thing for people with depression, because depression makes people twist anything into you're better off dead. It really does. And when you have anxiety, it lets you, or for me, my mind twists around that same you're better off dead already as depression, but anxiety is like, you're better off dead, and I'm going to give you the list of reasons why, and I'm going to pull up receipts on everybody, every goddamn thing they said, and they're going to, and whether they meant it that way or not, it's just going to be more proof of why I need to die, or why it's easier on me in the universe for me to be dead, things like that. And so, ooh, tears again. Woohoo! So, vocabulary, how you use it, how you phrase things on both sides. Because, nobody can make you depressed, but you can't make somebody not depressed either. So, just know that it's not a quick fix, and it's not one party's fault. It's not the depressed person's fault. It's mental illness. It's not your fault that you can't fix them, because it's not a fixable thing. So a place to start, just research. Both parties, do your research. Do it thoroughly as you possibly can with what you do know. Follow any keywords or vocabulary words you find that stands out a lot. and that's for both people. If you see keywords that stand out a lot, vocabulary is important. How you speak and how you phrase things, both on either end. You don't want to blame anybody for the depression or for not being able to help you if you have depression. People get burnt out, both with depression and who are just standing by watching it. It happens, and the depressed person is exhausted all the time, and they're frustrated because I feel people don't understand. And if it's true or not, I don't really know. It could be just depression telling me that. I don't know. I never know. And that's part of where the frustration comes from, as far as someone who's, suffering. But somebody who's also sitting by, and they probably will never truly understand because they've never had clinical depression, and that could be difficult too, thinking, well, why doesn't XYZ just help you? That could be frustrating too. So there's vocabulary research, I can't stress that enough. And because of the vocabulary, you don't want to blame each other, and you don't want to internalize all the blame either, because it's just sometimes just what it is. But somebody who's depressed won't always realize that, and somebody who has never been depressed won't always realize that either. From the outside looking in, it's not going to be that way. And so communication, these two things really will help with communication. Talking to the person, knowing the questions to ask someone who's depressed, but also knowing questions to ask the loved one of someone who's depressed. Finding the boundaries, the space, and the, tools. Knowing that someone is trying to do their research helps, the depressed person know that they do care. Communication, I'm here for you. That helps the person know, they are trying to help. And it's not just a once in a while thing you've got to say. Unfortunately, it's something that, because someone who's depressed and or has anxiety, I'm not sure how much of that differs from someone with depression and anxiety, because I have both. I don't have just one or the other. It's both at the same time. So someone who's got depression and they marinate in those thoughts, and they, as my stepmom says, turn cream into, what was it, whipped cream? Whatever, I don't know. Where you're whipping it so much that it just hardens and it gets worse or different. It's just, but people like whipped cream. I don't understand that analogy. Anyway, so it just ruminates, and it just runs around like that, and doesn't necessarily go anywhere. It just stays like that. There's no way out of, sometimes there's no way to break out of that. And so, but knowing someone's there for me sometimes can fight against some of the, they're going to leave me, they hate me for this, or whatever. So that is something like that. Realizing it's not a quick fix, that this stuff is going to happen for months, for years. And that's frustrating all on its own. Just knowing that, it's something that could go on for years and years and years. And for myself, having been diagnosed when I was 19, and possibly have, even though I was undiagnosed, having been depressed for all those years, it's, that whole time, that's, a little disheartening. So, or the possibility of that being there, that could be disheartening as well. So they kind of link into each other. Researching for yourself, and maybe even passing some things along. Here's what I've read. Would this be something that interests you? And I think I would ask before passing it along. And maybe that could also be something to when speaking to somebody from the sufferer of depression, to the loved one, saying, this is what I've been researching, like NAMI, National something for mental something. I gotta look that up. Various things. It's for allies and information on what you're both dealing with in your own different ways, and finding some of those resources, sharing those resources, and then that helps with communication as well. So there is got to be a lot of patience on both sides, and that's going to be hard for both sides. With the sufferer of depression, I believe, at least in my case, it's having to say it over and over and over again, or having to think that it over and over and over again, having to realize over and over and over again that it's a mental illness and it takes time. And so for those reasons, the frustration for me comes out when I feel like I'm being pushed in a different direction than what I am doing that has been working for me towards my recovery and feeling better. Because I feel like I'm not being heard, that, hey, this stuff works for me. But if it's not working for the people around me because it's slow or whatever, it's not necessarily their fault, because, things got to happen. Sometimes you have to have a job. Sometimes you have to do these things to support yourself because your parents, can't afford to support you, or, any number of things. Or, you're 31 years old and you got to support yourself. And it's just something that will make me feel good and help my depression overall. Those things have to happen, and there are limitations with depression. So the research and vocabulary and communication skills, like, helping the communication with like that, and learning how to speak where you're not blaming yourself and or each other, is going to go a long way, just on a day-to-day, moment-to-moment practice. And it is something that I myself am still working on and trying to work on. But it gets frustrating if it feels like the person on the other side isn't. And I can only imagine, from someone on the outside looking in, and even talking to people who are on different levels with their depression, or on different severity level of their depression, if they are worse, or just their level is, they feel on a 1 every single day, whereas I'm on a 1, at this point in my time, having had medication and doing this, I feel more of a 6 or 7, where it's like, okay, I'm okay, I'm average on a given day, but I have 1 days. I have, level 1 days. So, and that just kind of, I just feel that goes a long way, but it has to be done on both parties' side. And I tried to avoid going over like 12 to 15 minutes, but I did it anyway. So if you watched all of this and you're thinking about all of this, I'm going to reiterate one more time. Do your research. Both the person who loves the sufferer of depression and the sufferer of depression, what your diagnosis is or what their diagnosis is, look it up. I'll find as many vocabulary words as you can. Follow those threads as well. That way you understand what you're going through as a sufferer of mental illness, depression, which is what I know, and it knows it tells what the loved one is going through with depression, mental illness. So if they have they have depression, or if that you have depression, but you also know that you have anxiety, and you're diagnosed with more than one thing, it's not just one thing, it's both at the same time. So if the research is focused in that way, you've got to know what is depression, what is anxiety, and then you've also got to know what they do together. So if somebody is depressed, okay, but if somebody's got anxiety as well, then that's a whole nother monster as well. And having them together does its own damage. So, and having anxiety and depression is actually quite a contradictory illness to have. So that's something else to look into as well. So anyway, for both people. And then there's vocabulary. Knowing those vocabulary helps knowing how to speak to your loved ones, knowing as someone who suffers from depression, and also speak to the person who's suffering from depression. So there is that. So vocabulary words are important. So you do need to speak with the person. As somebody who's suffering from depression, it may be hard to say, I feel like crap, because maybe every day you feel like crap, but maybe being more specific might help. So I feel like crap because my body aches today. In my case right now, my tooth aches, and that's just not making me feel very good as it is. Or I feel like crap because I'm thinking about this strain of anxiety thoughts, and so the person who may be on the outside looking in, the loved one, may check in, how, on a scale of 1 to 10, one being crap, the other one being ecstatic, how do you feel? And if they don't know, and it's like, okay, I feel like crap, I'm on a 2 today, it's okay, what can I do to help? And even just asking that could raise the 2 to a 3, knowing that somebody cares enough to ask, or knowing that they know to ask, and it shows that they understand and that they care, and that can raise a 2 or 3, or even a 4 or 5. So that can make a lot of difference. And letting somebody know, I feel like crap today, they could also let the loved one know, maybe that's why my loved one has pulled away today, or that's why my loved one has been in bed all day today, or because they have these kinds of thoughts, maybe we can discuss this option, or this possible situation that could be put off in a little extra time, and maybe find another way to approach it or speak about it. So there's those 3 things like that. So another 21-minute video. If you watched all this, I applaud you and thank you for doing so. I appreciate it, and I do feel heard that you had taken that time to watch this video. So thank you for that. And if you didn't watch the whole thing, I don't blame you. If you have any questions, I can always be reached. My name is Magic Mumu, MAGICMUMU, all one word, and that's at Gmail, mostly on Tumblr, except for on here. Sometimes I'm Irene Spice, like my YouTube handle. You'll probably find me in those 3 main places. So if you do see that and you have questions, or you just want to have a discussion, those are some places to find me, and just put, I don't know, something that lets me know, that it's about that and it's not junk, So anyway, that's all. It's 22 minutes now, and I apologize, but thanks again, and have a good day.